This is the Tiger Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Good Wednesday evening and welcome into the High School Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score. I am Randy Rosetta. We're going to jump into the Tiger Fan Zone like we always do on Wednesday night. If you're watching on TV, to my far left is Jay Northcutt, friendship football coach, and he brought tight end, right?
Yes, sir.
Of course he's tight end.
Noah Ingram. Coach knows that. I told you, you heard me say it. I got switched to tight end about halfway through my high school career. I started to chunk up a little bit, and they decided I was not fast enough. I was quarterback.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
And we had a better athlete. It's been 40 years, so I'll get over it. Better athlete, and got shifted, so it was okay. That's why I've got affinity for tight ends.
They had to get all their athletes on the field somehow, Randy. So,
Coach liked me, so I think he tried to keep me on the field. How are you tonight, Noah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk about a big win last week and arguably a bigger game coming up Friday when you guys go down to Odessa. Coach and I have talked about this before. I'm going to guess you're a little bit more in tune with high school football history and tradition, and so you know Odessa Permian and
yes, sir. Yeah.
Ratliff Stadium, what that means.
Yes, sir.
Some guys your age, that doesn't resonate much. Just go watch Friday Night Lights, the movie, not the TV. The TV show's great, don't get me wrong. But that's all fictional. So does Coach give any kind of clear eyes, full heart speech every game?
I mean, every year, him and Coach Fraze, and they bring up Friday Night Lights just to kind of emphasize how fun the game's going to be, but that's about it. Yeah.
Most of them did raise their hand that they had seen the movie this morning, actually, Randy. So at least they do know what we're talking about, even though that movie's getting old.
It is getting old. So here's a little hidden fact about that movie. It may not matter to you. You know, in the scene where Gary Gaines is giving the speech at halftime, there's a bigger black guy standing to the back that's supposed to be an assistant coach. That's actually Boobie Miles, the guy
I had heard that's
playing him. And they had to stop and film that scene several times because when he was going through the speech, Boobie Miles kept losing it emotionally because he remembered it.
Yeah.
So Boobie Miles has had a rough time
now.
That game, the game they filmed with Midland Lee, that was when I left here and covered Lee for a year. I actually covered that game that they took, because you see Scott Smith on the sidelines, and I don't think John Parchman let him show him. I think he told him to get the camera off him. So, but you guys are going you're headed down to a historic place. Coach has been there a bunch before. Have you played there before?
I have, yeah. We played there last year.
Yep,
and then
we did.
My freshman year as well, yes, sir. So
you've kind of got a feel for, you're walking into a Texas shrine, but that doesn't matter. Once the ball goes in the air, you go and play football.
Right, yeah. I mean, once the ball's snapped, we just do our job, but it's definitely a cool place to play, and, it's a big stadium, too. It's a lot bigger than ours.
Yes, it is. It's almost cavernous.
Yeah.
And you guys are playing really good football. And, Jay, we talked earlier this week. I think a lot of people will look at last week's score and say, okay, it was Odessa High, but you told me you were pretty proud of what your guys did. Put together maybe their most complete game. And Odessa High was without Mikey Cota, but that's still a 6A football team that still has players that can make plays. And your guys shut them down defensively, and you didn't even mention this the other day. I didn't realize you guys had only run 42 plays.
Yeah, I didn't run very many plays in that game.
And you averaged about 11 and a half yards. That's not a bad quotient.
Pretty good night of offense for sure.
What did you like when you step back and look at that game? What did you like just about the way your guys performed?
Oh, I was really pleased with the win for a lot of reasons. The main one was I felt like it was our most complete game of the year. I felt like we played really well on special teams. We had some great returns. Damian Lozano had some great returns and some great blocking. We blocked a punt. Covered really well on kickoff, and then defensively we lived up to our motto of think and turnover. We created some turnovers with a pick, and our pick was in the end zone by Bryce Garza, and then Hudson Page jumped on a fumble, so they got some turnovers in that fashion, and then we got them off the field most of the night, and we consider that a turnover as well, and then offensively just had a monster night. Didn't run very many plays, as you mentioned. I think we only called 20 pass plays or threw the ball 20 times, and all 20 of those passes were caught. One of them was deemed out of bounds, but none of them hit the ground. So I can't think of probably any other time in my what's getting to be long career of coaching where that has been the case, where a ball doesn't even hit the ground. So just a great night for the Tigers, and hopefully something will keep the momentum going moving forward from it.
What does Clint Hartman say about you guys and running the ball?
Thinks it's just our hobby, running the ball.
So your hobby the other night, I don't know if you do this, exactly the same amount of runs as passes, 21 and 21.
Man, I need to send that to Coach Hartman and let him know we're getting more balanced.
When a running play gets called in and it comes into the huddle or line of scrimmage, you guys kind of look at Coach like, are you sure about this?
I mean, it fires me up, honestly, because that tight end get the block. But, I mean, I trust our running backs so much that I know that they're going to make a play just as much as we can make plays when we pass it. So it's nice having receivers we trust, but also having backs we trust too, and O-line as well. And
two of those those backs had nights. Ethan DeLeon 8 carries for 52 yards, Jordan Hernandez 4 for 52, and they had 4 touchdowns between them.
They did. I was really excited for both of those guys, and going back to the play calls, Randy, sometimes we call a run play and we still throw it, so that happens as well. But Ethan and Jordan, really excited to see them have success running. They don't always get to have as many carries as they had last Friday night, but they know what their role is. They know that sometimes they're going to have the ball in their hand, and then sometimes they're going to spend the night in pass pro, and sometimes they're going to run block, and sometimes they're going to be our 5th receiver out of the backfield, and sometimes they get the ball doing that, and then there's other times where they're running routes and opening other guys up. But at the end of the day, they're unselfish, and so when you have guys like that, it's always fun to see them, get to have some success running the ball, and they didn't just go out and do that, in what I would deem an average way. They made some really, really tough, hard runs, some of them for touchdowns.
I'll throw another pop culture reference out there. So when guys are changing plays, it's not like on Varsity Blues where the quarterback's just making up plays and running them.
No, I probably wouldn't be super happy if
Coach Kilmer wasn't. He was not happy with them. So, but you're much nicer than Coach Kilmer was.
Well, thanks, Randy. Appreciate that.
Grayson Page probably wants to talk to you, though, about a big guy reception. I think he's mentioned
He brings that up, every once in a while, yeah.
You probably got a few guys would. We'll come back and talk about actual real football after the break when we continue on the Tiger Fan Zone. This is Randy Rosetta on 100.7 The Score.
Bringing you the latest news from Friendship Athletics. This is the Tiger Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back to the Tiger Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score. I am Randy Rosetta. It's Jay Northcutt to my far left, Noah Ingram in the middle. Whatever song that was, it's got like a siren, a weather siren on it. I don't know if you guys still do this at your home stadium, but in the pregame there's a part where they play like a tornado siren.
Yeah, an air raid, yeah.
Last year the weather was really kind of frightening before. They turned that thing and they played that thing, and everybody in the stands was like, wait a minute, what's going on? I thought you guys were going to wind up with no home crowd that night because I thought everybody was going to scatter to the 4 winds. The Tigers are not home this week. They are on the road at Odessa Permian. I'm going to run through the radio schedule real quick. Thursday night, huge game at Lowry Field. Game of the week, Abilene High and Monterey at Lowry Field, 93.7 The Eagle, 7 p.m. kickoff. Friendship goes to Permian on Double T, 97.3. Lubbock Cooper's also got a big one. They head to Abilene Wiley. That's right here on 100.7 The Score. Estacado and Liberty play in District 2 4A Division 2 on 93.1 Yes FM. And Slayton goes to Idalou. That's on Sunday 97.7 FM. There's no shortage of big games this week. I guess when you get to this time of year, everybody's starting to kind of jockey for position. You guys have gotten used to that these last couple of years. This is a little bit different feeling than last year, Noah, because last year you guys started 0-2 and you're fighting, coming back. The Permian game was big for different reasons. How is this different for you guys mentally and how you're approaching things now, being 3-0, kind of sitting in the driver's seat right now, knowing that you can take another big step Friday?
Yeah, I think we just need to really not change a thing. Just keep the preparation the same, keep the mentality the same, and because if we take the foot off the gas, I mean, in District 2 6A, we're going to get beat. So every day has got to be our best and just trust the coaches, and just the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, there's no easy breathing in your district.
No, sir.
Not for 5 weeks. You get somebody told me that when Coach first started coaching, when you guys starting to get good, he had like darker hair and it wasn't gray. He didn't have any wrinkles. He still kind of looked youthful, and now
haven't changed a bit, have I?
Got a few wrinkles now.
I actually referenced you guys' district last week in a tweet when I was at the Lubbock Cooper game. Them and Memorial scored 52 points in the fourth quarter, and I said that all of a sudden a District 2-6A game had broken out because that's what with you guys' district. It's
a lot of offense in our district, for sure.
I told this to Coach a bunch of times. I feel bad for the defensive coordinators and defensive guys because it looks like they're just taking the week off, but they play well, but there's just so many guys making plays.
Sir.
When Mark Roboto was here last week, he kind of started wandering down that hole. I think your guys probably told you that he ran over a couple times on the breaks.
He's good at doing that.
He just kept talking. I said, it's okay, let him go.
And Coach Ribb, he has an old saying, he'll see, some, old person, walking down the street, and he'll talk about how they're an old 2-6A DC. That's what old 2-6A DCs look like.
There we go. I bet if he came to the LISD luncheon once, he'd probably see some guys that would nod and kind of smile at him like, we know.
Maybe so, yeah, probably so.
But you guys put other defenses to test. I could call up the stats on HubCityPreps.com and rattle through the stats. I don't have to look, though. I know you guys are leading the city in offense again. Holden's been incredible, your receivers, but I do want to talk about the defense because it's just uncanny how your guys have a knack for coming up with the stop when it matters. A few weeks ago was against Midland High. It was the 3 negative plays in a row right at the end. Last week you get the stop, and I liked how you pointed it out that sometimes that 3 and out in the first quarter gets lost in the shuffle, but those are big at that point because it lets you guys do what you're good at doing. That's building that cushion so that you can kind of play. It's almost like on basketball, it's like in defense. You can keep the great offensive guy in front of you a little bit.
Yeah, I think, one mentality that you have to play with, in our district that I feel like we've gotten pretty good at having is just having that next play mentality because that you're going to go against some offenses that may get you, whether it be throwing or passing. And so our defense and our team has just developed that mentality that, okay, well, we just got to keep putting ourselves in a position to have success, keep playing the next play. I think best case scenario for all of us in our district is to get out ahead and make the other team chase you, and keep your foot on the gas. So we're all vying for exactly how to do that each week in every game, to establish that situation. And I think that's why you have to have that mentality because I think, if you don't, then you're definitely not going to be able to put yourself in that situation. And then if you do get behind a little bit, you've got to have the mental toughness to make sure that you keep playing the next play to give yourself a chance to come back.
I'm going to get Noah to talk about that. We're coming up on a break here. I don't want to get Noah into Mark Roboto territory and have him talking through it. So I'll get him to kind of talk about how players establish that. Just a reminder, Friendship goes down the road to Odessa at Permian, 7 p.m. Friday. It's on Double T 97.3 FM. Keith Patrick, Paul Tubbs, and David Collier will have that one for you. We'll be back on the Tiger Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Breaking down Friendship sports. This is the Tigers Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Tiger Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score. Friendship goes down to Permian Friday night, 7 p.m. at Ratliff Stadium. Double T 97.3 FM. We'll have that for you. Jay, when we talked earlier this week, you gave me a little bit of background on Permian. They're young, big, athletic, and talented. So there's not many boxes they don't check off.
No, not at all. And, some of them were on the varsity last year, and they were a young team because they played a couple freshmen. So you've got some sophomores that have played a lot of varsity games for them. And then offensively, they just have an offensive line that really stands out that I think is the strength of their team. They really are good at running the ball. They've got some really good runners behind those linemen, and then they've got some guys that can sting you, and then defensively they're always aggressive, they're always physical, and they always try to really put a lot of pressure on the QB.
just looking at raw numbers, the Gavin Black kid has carried 198 times in 8 games. That's 25 carries a game. There's not a lot of high school guys who do that anymore.
No.
And he's gotten 1,600 yards out of it, so he's doing something with those carries. And it's a little bit deceiving. This isn't like Midland High or Tascosa's option offense, because their quarterback's thrown for 1,100 as well.
Yeah, they're, definitely emphasize the run game there at Permian, but they're effective with their passing game. The quarterback is not only a good runner, he's a good passer, and they've got some good schemes that kind of complement, what they like to do with their runs, and very explosive on top of that. They've got a couple of receivers that can really sting you and get behind you if or if you let them get behind you, they can really sting you. So they're going to be a big challenge for us, but as always, we're always up for challenges.
Well, no, I don't want to forget what we were talking about. Coach talked about the mentality that builds up for you guys. How long have you been in the friendship system?
Ever since I started school, kindergarten. So
there you go.
I guess I've been playing football since 7th grade.
So you've known this dude for a while.
Yeah, a long time. Yes, sir.
And it took a while. I'm not bagging him. He knows when he first got there, it was a struggle to kind of make that transition and go from 2 Davises for, how long was it? 50-some years, 40 years.
A long time, yeah.
To a new system, new way of doing things. There were some rough times, but you guys, players, stayed the course with him. Why is that? What was it that kind of got instilled in you guys at a young age that's kind of taken root now?
I think just like the mentality, and we've been saying Semper Impetus for as long as I can remember, that always attack phrase. And I think that plus the relationships we built, because they're at all the middle school games, and we've just known for so long that whenever we get to high school, it fires us up, and we're excited to play for them and excited to be a part of what they're doing at the high school.
Because you guys last 3 years, you could get 9 wins for a 3rd year in a row?
Yes, sir.
Am I saying that correctly? Okay. Which I'm guessing goes back a ways since that happened. Bobby Davis and Brad Davis had an incredible run there. You guys jumped into the old little Southwest Conference. We talked about that the other day. Those are different waters when you start talking about both Odessa schools, both Midland schools. St. Angelo Central, Abilene was in there. You guys had to elevate your program to match that. So knowing guys like Noah that have been there for years, how proud of you of what guys like they have done through the years to get you to this point?
Oh, extremely proud and grateful as well, because it's a great group of guys, and I think our number one asset out at Friendship is the commitment level of our players. I mean, they'll do whatever you ask them to do. They really want to win. They're passionate about the game of football. They're passionate about being a Tiger and being part of the program. And guys like Noah and his class, they've had the advantage of coming up through our system, and he's been running stick since he was probably in pre-athletics, and so now we can call stick, but we can dress it up a whole lot, and no matter where we put Noah on the field, he knows what his assignment is when we call that play. And so I think that's really kind of what you see when you have some consistency there with some of these kids just coming up through the program. You can really, do a lot more with them because they're pretty, dug in with what their assignments are and really comfortable.
So is stick the Jay Northcutt version of 56 pass?
A little different, but we have some versions of 56 pass. Yeah, I know what you're getting at, Randy.
Yeah. I've told you this before. You were around when Brad Davis was there, and if you've been around Friendship, you know who Bobby Davis is. Bobby Davis and Art Briles probably don't get enough credit for what they did for the kind of offenses that are being run now. Mike Leach gets a lot of credit, Hal Mummy, but those two had a lot to do with it too.
Well, they did, and just as you kind of touched on there, the Davises were at Friendship for so long that they had the exact same scenario play out, and they did a good job at being consistent.
Yep.
And so when their kids came to high school, they knew how to run that O and that D.
Yep, and so do these guys, and they're going to put it to the test Friday night at Ratliff Stadium. Friendship at Permian on Double T 97.3 FM. We come back after the break on 100.7 The Score.